On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks get a win against the Toronto Raptors, playing the same game they've been playing. Can they keep that up? How does Luka Doncic keep making it look so easy? And Spencer Dinwiddie has some choice words for Tony Brothers' choice words that he used against him. We'll talk about what all that means and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, letting it ride on a Friday night. Oh yeah, the Dallas Mavericks get the win. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day and every post game. Remember, Locked On Mavs is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to comment anything below. Let us know what stood out to you in the win. What did you think about Spencer Dinwiddie's comments? Do you agree with Spencer Dinwiddie? Maybe let's do that. Do you agree with Spencer Dinwiddie? Let me know. Do you agree? All right, we will get into this show. Is there anything to talk about, though? Oh, man. Yeah, the Dallas Mavericks get a win. It's a great win, 111-110. Isaac is out. Luka Doncic, another game where he scores 35 points, making it look easy again. Maybe his most efficient game of the season. But I think we got to start with Spencer Dinwiddie because this was wild. So the game goes on. Third quarter happens, and there's some calls going back and forth. I think I even wrote in my notes. of the game. Oh, the Mavericks just got a really nice, a call that went their way, basically. Like, oh, the Mavericks have been benefiting from a call, a very favorable. I wrote, Mavs getting a very favorable whistle on a few plays after a bad take foul. Luka gets called for a take foul with 11:11 left in the third quarter. The Mavs get a couple of calls in their favor, it seems. And then all of a sudden, it just started a landslide of calls that went against the Dallas Mavericks. Couple of Spencer Dinwiddie offensive fouls that were just him kind of driving in and an arm gets caught between his arm and you call it for an offensive foul 2 times in a row. Tim Hardaway got called for a charge and then they challenged it. And then Spencer Dinwiddie gets called for a technical. And it didn't seem like a big deal in real time, at least away from the play where I was sitting. Didn't seem like a big deal. But Spencer Dinwiddie gets called for the technical, and after the game, I started walking to the tunnel. So I'm going through the bowels of the AAC, and all of a sudden, I'm walking with Tim Cato, and we just point, and Tim Cato points in front of me and was like, "What's Dinwiddie? Where's Dinwiddie going?" Dinwiddie, no socks, no shoes, like he just left the locker room, is walking with one of the PR staff towards the interview room, which is also towards the visiting team locker room. So I was like, he's either going to go say hi to somebody that he knows on the other team, or he's really rushing to go over to the media room. Turns out it was the latter. It was the second part. He really wanted to go to the media room and get something off his chest, specifically about Tony Brothers, the referee. Now, if you followed the NBA for a long time, you know Tony Brothers. He's a referee that, he's like, a lot of good things have been said about him by coaches and other referees and sometimes players and all kinds of stuff. But then there's a lot of bad stuff that's been said about Tony Brothers by fans and players and all kinds of different things. And he sure seems like to throw out some techs. He was really throwing out some techs in this game. Nick Nurse got one. The Raptors coach got one early. Luka got his second tech of the year on one that he definitely deserved. Tony Brothers didn't give it to him, but Tony Brothers called the foul that Luka objected to and then started yapping and into the timeout. Luka was just like barking at this other ref. And the other ref was like, I got to call a tech on you. He's just out of control. And he was. And he earned that one. Luka earned that tech. So Luka gets called for a tech. Dinwiddie gets called for one. Nick Nurse got called for one. And so Tony Brothers is now is a notorious ref in the NBA. I don't know if I don't know what side of it you're on. Probably anti, because I think most fans are anti all refs, basically. But Spencer Dinwiddie has an opinion, apparently, because he came into the media room. He sits down at the press room table. It's the one that you see on Bally Sports or the Mavs.com. Like, they put the videos out. And he's like, all right, I started monologuing yesterday or last game about Dwight Powell. And since you guys like that monologue so much, I got another one for you today. And as soon as he said that, I thought, all right, I gotta get my phone out and I gotta record this, because it's either gonna be a really cool thing about a player or it's gonna be something that I'm gonna want to put up like immediately. It turns out it was the latter. So let's hear from Spencer Dinwiddie. I had to bleep a couple of things, but I think you'll get the gist of it. This is Spencer Dinwiddie talking about Tony Brothers. He's talking about Tony Brothers giving him the technical foul and like pleading with the league to give him his money back. Players get fined every single time they get a technical. And here's Spencer Dinwiddie.
For what seemed to keep him irate, which was a clap. I think he thought it was disrespectful. If you watch the games, and I know that's what refs are supposed to do, you see I clap to like get the attention of my teammates, things of that nature. So it was nothing personal. So as a man, I would like to say I'm sorry first and foremost, and secondarily, I would like to say not only would I like my money back, but I would like to not be called a bitch-ass motherfucker to my teammates. So if there is anybody that feels that way about me, not naming any names, they can address me personally, face to face, because no swear words were used in the direction of anybody. Personally, it was like, hey, that wasn't a take foul, or that wasn't a take foul, or something like that. But it wasn't anything that was personal. So NBA, I would definitely like my money back, and I would appreciate no fine at all in this monologue. Thank you.
So Dinwiddie's whole thing in there is that I don't know what was getting under Tony Brothers' skin. I don't know what was I don't know, I guess putting his underwear in a bunch or whatever you want to say, whatever phrase Isaac would come up with that was different, those two phrases mashed together. I don't know what was making Tony Brothers irate, but all I did, Spencer Dinwiddie talk, all I did was clap. All I did was clap. And sometimes I clap just to get my teammates involved. Sometimes I clap because I'm frustrated. There wasn't any ill intention behind it. So I would like to get my technical rescinded. That's basically what Spencer Dinwiddie's whole thing was I would like to get my technical rescinded. I don't want to pay the money because it's probably tied up in Bitcoin or whatever else it's tied up in for Dinwiddie. I would like my money back from the fine. And a lot of times technicals do get rescinded. But he's like, I would like to get that rescinded, and I would not, and then also he's like, I would like to not be called a BAMF. Oh wait, that's a different one. I guess that acronym has two different meanings, I guess. But I would like to not be called those words in front of my teammates by the referees. There's been a whole thing to start this season about referees and players and how they're supposed to be more cordial with each other and how it's all supposed to be a little bit more toned down. They've been really tough on certain things early in the season. Techs have been flying a little bit easier, I think, so far this season. And there's this whole thing that they did. Luka talked about it a couple weeks ago, where referees came and talked to them about the rules and tried to get some kind of understanding between the two parties, because it seemed like last year tensions were at an all-time high between referees and players. There's this disconnect between I never get calls and these calls called against me are wrong. Like that whole thing where you never think you've done anything wrong as a player. And the tensions were at an all-time high. So Spencer Dinwiddie making his piece known about that. And this can go one or two ways for the Mavs. Dinwiddie could get his tech rescinded. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to probably have to pay more money for talking about referees like this. Although, Tony Brothers calling Spencer Dinwiddie that is probably going to be frowned upon with the league as well. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. There's always going to be this thing in the back of our minds, though, in the back of your mind probably. If it's a Tony Brothers game, you're going to be like, every call that's anti-Mavs, you're going to start thinking about this monologue again and start thinking about, is he doing that just because of Spencer Dinwiddie's monologue? Is this going to have an adverse effect on the Mavericks? And we won't know that. We won't know the answer to that until a game happens or until, whatever. If the league decides to do anything, the league did not decide to respond. They usually respond to referee type situations or rule calls during a game with a pool reporter, and the NBA decided not to do that with this one. They said, we don't have to do it, so we're not going to do it. And so they didn't. So we won't hear from the league until probably Monday when they go back in the office. But fascinating from Spencer Dinwiddie, another monologue from him. I'm enjoying his monologues, really. I really do enjoy his monologues, and I hope you do as well. But coming up, let's talk about Luka. Let's talk about this game because the Mavericks play the same exact game. The same game we've been seeing for 7 out of their 8 games now. Can they keep it up? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a place where you can go check out some fun games that you can play during NBA games. You don't have to play against all these professionals and all these guys that just sit there with their algorithms and their smartness and they just win every single time, right? You can go to Prize Picks right now. You can pick the over-under for 2 to 5 players. So let's say the Magic are playing the Sacramento Kings on Saturday. That's a fun one. Paolo Banchero, 21.5 over-under on his points. I'm going to go over on that. Franz Wagner, 18.5. Actually, Wendell Carter. I'm going to go under on Wendell Carter, 16 points. If I put down $20 on that, I can win 60. If I put down $100, I can win $300 on that play if I do it. I can also combine it with World Series stuff. I can combine it with NFL stuff. So go check it out. It's Prize Picks. It's you can use the promo code Locked On to get a 100% deposit match. Use the promo code Locked On. All right, Isaac. Oh boy, Spencer Dinwiddie got me all fired up. This Mavericks game was the exact same game we've seen from them for 7 out of their 8 games so far. The Mavericks have played 8 games. They're 5-3 and get a good record now. They've won 3 straight. They had the one game against the Grizzlies where they just blew the doors off of them. Grizzlies come in, they're tired, second night of back-to-back, traveling both days, missing guys, missing essentially 3 starters, and the Mavericks just blow them out. Home opener for the Mavs, great win. And then they've had all these other games where at some point, and it's been true in every single game, they get a fourth quarter lead. They've had fourth quarter leads in every single game this season. They go into the fourth quarter with a 15-point lead. They enter the fourth quarter up 96-81. So I guess they had a 15-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and it just dwindles down all the way to 1 at one point. Like just the same thing every single game. It feels like dwindled down to 2. I guess it never got to 1. The Mavericks have played this same game where they get this lead in the fourth quarter and they blow it all the way down. And then eventually it comes down to the end. A couple of plays here and there. They go to overtime against some teams. They lose some, they win some. And here we are with this Mavericks team. What is going on in these third quarter, fourth quarters where the Mavericks can't keep a lead basically? And it was strange in this one because we've seen this lineup of Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Green, Maxey, and Christian Wood. We've seen that lineup do well, but they started the 15-point lead, and by the time Luka was about to check back in, it was only a 6-point lead, so it went down, and then Luka checks back in. The Raptors had gone on a 11-2 run at that point. I got questions about that lineup. We've seen it do good things. We've seen it struggle. And it comes down to, they just couldn't score at certain times. And this Raptors team is really tough. They're top 5 in both defense and offense. They've got all these wings. The Raptors in this game were missing Fred VanVleet, who's they're literally their only guard on the roster. Think about their whole roster and who played tonight. I guess you can count Gary Trent as a guard, but he's not really handling the ball too much. They didn't have him bring up the ball too often. Their only guard was Fred VanVleet, and he was out. So they got all these switchable wings. They can literally switch 1 to 5 because of the size of all the guys out there. Makes it really tough to score against them. They also won on every single one of the margins. Every margin that there was, the Raptors won in this game. Eventually, the Mavericks caught them and tied in points in the paint, 48-50. But second chance points. The Raptors had 25. The Mavs only got 10. And rebounds. The Raptors, now you guys love Isaac's whole rebounds thing. The Raptors had 44 rebounds. The Mavericks had 31. So the Mavericks won the game, and they lost the rebounding battle by 13. What I care about is that the Raptors had 18 offensive rebounds, and the Mavericks had 6. The Raptors had 18 offensive rebounds, and the Mavs had 25 defensive rebounds. The Mavericks almost had the same number of defensive rebounds as the Raptors got on their end. You're not going to win on the margins on that. You're not going to win a lot of games if that's what it is. If that's what it comes down to. Luckily, the Mavericks hit 12 threes, and Luka was on another level, and they just got a couple of key stops and key plays late. But you're not going to win a bunch of games when you're getting out rebounded like that. And that's just the way that this Raptors team is. They threw a bunch of different defenses at the Mavericks. They tried a bunch of different things, and they've just got all these guys with long arms, like 7 foot and plus wingspans that are just out there causing chaos and trying a bunch of stuff. And so the Mavericks, eventually, they come down to the end, and Luka comes back in. They go on, they hold on to the lead like as tight as they possibly can until it dwindles down to 4, then 2, then couple of tense, chaotic things happen late. Dwight Powell gets an offensive rebound, which is huge. Dorian gets an offensive rebound late, which is huge. They're just dwindling the clock down. A couple of fouls late as well, where the Mavericks go to the free throw line. Luka splits his. Dinwiddie hits 2 of his. And then the Mavericks end up winning the game, and they hold on to win. Hopefully, I think it was Mavericks. I think it was either Raptors or Mavericks by 3.5. The spread on BetOnline. And OG Anunoby hits a 3 right at the buzzer to make it 111 to 110 Mavericks. So hopefully you didn't have the Mavericks on the line there, which would have been a really bad beat for you with that last second OG Anunoby 3. But the Mavericks have played this exact same game. Like, how can they stop playing this game? And how they stop playing this game is, you got to get some this game is weird. You got to get some offense from some of these guys. Usually we're saying they got to get stops. I guess they got to get stops too, but they just couldn't score in the fourth quarter. The Mavericks scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. They only allowed the Raptors to score 29. That's about on par with the rest of the game. 29 in the first quarter, 28, 24 in the third quarter where their defense was really clicking, and then 29 in the fourth. The Mavericks just couldn't keep up their scoring. They were scoring at a really great pace, 31, 31, 34, and then 15. It just stopped. It just all stopped for them. And if you look at some of the shots they took in the fourth quarter, let's see. They were 1 of 8 from 3. Luka Doncic hit the only 3, and it was pretty late, too. It was a step-back 3. That was one that they really needed. But Dinwiddie missed 2 of his 3s. Bullock missed 2 of his 3s. Dorian missed a 3. Tim Hardaway Jr. missed his 2 shots that he took. They had the situation where there was the 2 offensive fouls in a row, and then Tim Hardaway Jr.'s offensive foul that was challenged. It wasn't good. Christian Wood was the only guy in the fourth quarter that was really showing up, actually. Christian Wood, I thought, had some decent moments. He had a drive and he had an alley-oop to Maxey that I thought was an incredible play. And then I guess in the third quarter he did more of his damage, but Christian Wood gets benched. Seems like he was a little frustrated going to the bench. It's just going to keep happening. They're not going to trust him towards the end of these games. They want to go with their starters. Dwight was great in this game. They needed a guy like Dwight in this game. And let's talk about that. Dwight Powell starts instead of JaVale McGee, and JaVale McGee only ends up playing 1 run of 4 minutes. He only plays 1 rotation. And Dwight Powell plays 26 minutes. He was a +8 in his minutes that he played. He only got 2 rebounds. He hit 3 of his 6 shots around the rim. But he had a couple of just really good plays, and the Mavericks defense is just better when someone knows where they're supposed to be and can move. And Dwight can move. It was just visible that it was just better, more fluid. And in that third quarter, you could just feel the Mavericks defense. And some of it is because Fred VanVleet is not playing for the Raptors, and because Pascal Siakam was limited at times, and he ends up leaving the game in the fourth quarter because of an ankle or a foot or some kind of lower body injury. But in the third quarter, you can tell the Mavericks, like the rhythm, we talk about the rhythm of offenses a lot, but I felt like the rhythm of their defense really got on point in the third quarter. And they only allowed 24 points, which was solid for them, but felt like they were really playing well as a team at that point. Luka was making defensive stops. Luka had 3 steals and a block just in the third quarter alone. Like, he was making some really good plays. He was in the right spots. You could tell that he had been either called out or called himself out for his defense, and really stepped up in that moment. Mavericks had 5 steals in that quarter. Dinwiddie had another steal. Christian Wood had another steal where he gets the steal and he goes down to the other end and dunks it. It was an incredible play for him. Forced a timeout on the Raptors. And the Mavericks, their defense finally got a little bit on the same page, which is good. But they ended up still being about where they are defensively, even with the Raptors missing Siakam for the end of the game and Fred VanVleet for the whole game, which says something about the Mavericks defense. Luka, though, what do you say? 8 straight games 30-plus points to start the season. The only players to ever do that are Luka Doncic and Wilt Chamberlain. And Luka did this in incredibly efficient fashion. 10 of 15 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. He said after the game, I hit 50% of my threes, which is like the best day ever for me. That was his words. And then 12 of 14 from the free throw line. One of the only free throws he missed was that one late, which kind of stinks. And then a technical he missed earlier in the game. But he hits 12 free throws. Huge. 6 assists for him. And this Raptors team, God love them. Whatever God they serve in Toronto, in Canada. Mooses love him. He was splitting all kinds of different defenses. They tried all kinds of... I saw Mike Prada tweet this out. Luka Doncic was making it look easy. They tried drop, level, peel switching, nexting, trapping on the side, a bit of normal switching, trapping high, trapping isos, trapping with exaggerated nail help, and then praying, and nothing mattered with Luka. All those different types of defenses. Nick Nurse just kept throwing out stuff. He's like, I'm just going to keep throwing things at the wall and just try to cause chaos. If you ever watch Ted Lasso, it's the last game of season 1, and they're like, all right, we're going to go play against Man City, and we're going to drop the chaos hammer on them. We're going to try all these trick plays, and they start throwing out trick plays, Loki's Toboggan and the Sandman and Lasso Special, and they start throwing out, and they're mostly offensive plays, but they just started throwing out all these plays just to try and cause chaos because they knew we're not as talented as that team on the other side. Raptors are like, we can't stop Luka. We're not as good as Luka on the other side. So let's just try and throw as much chaos as possible. And not one defensive thing is going to beat him because he can break any defense, especially the way he's playing right now. He just can split traps. He can split double teams. He can get a pass out. The pass a couple of games ago where he's on the baseline, there's 3 players around him, 3 defenders around him, and he somehow gets the ball right to Christian Wood under the rim right where he needs it. He's just on a different level right now as a player. And the Raptors tried as much as they could with all those wings. OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes is on him a lot. They tried Precious on him. They tried Pascal a little bit on him. They had Christian Koloko like hovering around him. Boucher with his long arms around him too. Otto Porter at times. Like they just tried every wing. Like listen to those guys. It's like all these defensive wings that you would think would be really good on Luka. But we've seen this story before with the Clippers. The Clippers in the playoffs, they tried all this stuff, and you just can't do the same thing twice against Luka. And apparently, you just can't do anything against Luka, which is fine. He had one where 2 Raptors players came up to trap him on the sideline, right in front of the Mavs bench, and so there's 2 players, one to Luka's left and one to his right. They come up together to try and trap Luka, and the player on the right side drifted a little too far, and so there was space between the 2 players. And Luka was able to dribble the ball behind his back while spin through the trap, and get through. And then I think he kicked it over to Tim Hardaway, and Tim Hardaway hit a 3. Right in front of the Mavs bench. It was insane. Jason Kidd just couldn't believe that play afterwards. He's like, I couldn't believe that he did that. Luka kind of surprised himself. He even said that. Callie Kaplan asked him if, do you still surprise yourself with some of that stuff? And he said, I did. I did surprise myself on that play specifically. An incredible play from him. He had another play late that you've probably seen on Twitter by now or wherever highlights you're watching, where Precious is guarding him. Precious is like this 6'9" uber athlete that has a quick twitch that is supposed to be able to switch really well against these bigger guards. And Luka goes between his legs and back and forth and herky-jerky and 8 or 9 times. And then as he's falling away with the knee up, I kick my Luka knee up, he hits the shot. Tim McMahon asked him after the game if he could see the rim. And he didn't really answer the question, but I don't think he did. I don't think he could see the rim from where he was. He just chucked the ball up and it went in. It was just an incredible play, and he's just making it look easy. He's doing so much stuff right now that's working. Other thoughts on this game, talked about Dwight Powell. Spencer Dinwiddie was great. For all the talk about the referee stuff, I thought this was his best game of the season so far. He had 21 points. He had 7 assists, which is huge. 2 steals. He only had 2 turnovers, which are huge. He hit 3 threes. 8 of 17 from the field. He only went to the free throw line 2 times. Right after he did that whole monologue, I asked him, your free throw rate is the lowest of your career. Do you think that's more about the way that you've been taking contact, or do you think more about it's about the calls you're getting? And you can guess which answer he gave. He said, am I getting in the paint the same amount of times I'm getting that I was in Brooklyn or in somewhere else? And we talked about this yesterday. He's got to get to the free throw line more. And to his defense, he says that he's still getting in the paint the same amount of times he would in Brooklyn or in some of these other places that he's played. And there he averaged like 5, 7, free throw attempts a game. His free throw rate was a little bit higher then. It's so low right now. It's, what is it? Before this game, it was 12.9%. Lowest of his career. His best season in Brooklyn, it was at 43%, 2 years in a row. Like 12.9% to 43%. Like that's a big difference. And so he's just not getting to the line. He thinks it's because of the calls he's getting. Hopefully this monologue will help him. The monologue that we shared earlier. But if he can get that going, then the Mavericks will be in really good shape because they need him to get some easy buckets here and there. But he was great. Other than getting to the line, he was great in this game. He played just about 38 minutes. Christian Wood, I thought had some decent moments we talked about earlier. Hit 13 points off the bench. He had a steal. He had a block. The steal that led to the fast break dunk. He was great. Josh Green, mid-game got a highlight package. Mid-game, there's a stoppage of play, and they put a highlight package of all the good stuff Josh Green had done. He hit a 3 in the corner where Maxey was right under the rim and could have dunked it and decided instead to kick it out to Josh Green for a 3, and he hit that 3. He had his memorial Josh Green offensive rebound that he got that added another possession to the Mavericks. He got an awesome steal, and that turned into a dunk. He had 7 points overall. Just a great game. He got 20 minutes. So we're now 5 games in a row that Josh Green's minutes have continued to rise. Great. Love it. And Bullock only had to play 25 minutes because of that. So that's good. Dorian only played 30 minutes in this game. They're limiting those guys' minutes so they don't just have to play 42 minutes every game, which is great. You love to see that from Josh Green. So lots of other stuff. Some guys really struggled in this game. I mean, the offense was cooking. The defense struggled a little bit, but Maxey, I thought, had a really rough game. He had just 3 turnovers that were all like catch the ball in the wing, and then the Raptors defenders, their wingspan is so long. They close out on him, and he can't get the open threes that he has normally gotten. And so he had to drive the lane, and he's done that before, and we've seen him do that, but when he drives the lane, he stepped out of bounds or traveled, or 3 times that happened in this game. And then he missed the only 3 he took. And then 2 other times he missed layups at the rim when he was driving off of closeouts. So he really struggled in that area of his game in this one. Reggie Bullock was 0-5 from 3. He really struggled to shoot the ball. He didn't even get the one late. Interesting subplot with him is that he used to take the technical free throws. That when the other team got a tech, so Nick Nurse gets a tech in this game, it used to be Reggie that would take the free throw if he's on the court. Now they're giving it to Luka, which is interesting. Subplot to watch. Other than that, Reggie had 3 steals and a block, so he was defending at a good rate. Dorian struggled with Siakam. Siakam had 18 points in the game. I think 17 of them were in the first half, so he came back and he adjusted a little bit better. And Dorian adjusted a little bit better in the third quarter. But yeah, Siakam was 7 of 12 with 17 points at halftime. Just Dorian was really struggling because he can stay in front of him all day. It's just that Siakam's release point is so high because he's so big, so long, and can shoot from pretty much anywhere on the court now at this point in his career that it's really hard to guard him. He's doing a really great job. He's just having a great season. Dorian did his best, but he just couldn't stop him from where he was. So great game for the Mavericks. Hopefully they can keep winning games like this, but hopefully they'll hold on to leads better in the fourth quarter. So we'll be back on Monday breaking all that down, talking about what else the Mavericks can do, and go check out another Locked On podcast. Locked On NBA, I did it on Friday with Adam Mares. Great stuff, talking about the games that happened in the league and not the Kyrie stuff or the Miles Bridges stuff or anything like that. So go check it out. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom!